following story is based on real events. Names and identifying details have been changed to protect those involved. The pen is a nice one. That is the first thing I notice. Not the document in front of me, not the highlighted line where Garrett has already pressed his finger to show me where to sign, but the pen itself. It is a heavy silver pen, the kind that costs more than it should, and Garrett hands it to me the way he hands me things when he wants me to move quickly. Extended slightly, elbow bent, eyes on the paper, not on me. I've been handed that pen 11 times in 9 years of marriage. I know this because I have started counting. Refinancing agreements, LLC formation documents, a deed transfer that Garrett explained in under 4 minutes at the kitchen table, while I was also making dinner and helping our son with his homework. I signed them all. I am a vice principal. I manage a school of 600 students, 43 teaching staff, and a budget that the board reviews quarterly. I am not a person who signs things without reading them, and yet with Garrett I always did. He had a way of making everything feel routine, administrative. Just paperwork, Miriam. You know how this works. I did know how things worked. What I did not know was that the things I was signing had been quietly, carefully, and very deliberately structured to work against me. I should tell you about our life before I tell you what I found. My name is Miriam. I am 38 years old. Garrett and I met at a mutual friend's wedding when I was 27. He was in the wedding party. I was a guest. And he spent the entire reception finding reasons to be near whichever table I was sitting at. He proposed 11 months later on a Sunday morning before I was even fully awake, which I found impossibly romantic at the time, and now understand was a pattern. Garrett makes his most important moves when you are not quite ready. We have one son, Marcus, who is 9 years old and has his father's jawline and my stubbornness in equal measure. My older sister Donna came to the wedding and danced at the reception and gave a speech that made people laugh. And on the drive home, she said to me very quietly, "He is very charming, Mim. Just make sure you know the difference between a man who is charming and a man who is kind." I told her she was overthinking it. I think about that sentence at least once a week now. The document Garrett puts in front of me on a Thursday evening in March is, he tells me, a restructuring of one of his commercial property LLCs. Routine. His broker's license requires periodic restructuring, he says. He says this while also pouring himself a glass of wine and asking me about my day. The document is 11 pages long. He has bookmarked the signature pages with small adhesive tabs, 3 of them pink, the kind you buy at an office supply store. I notice briefly that the document is thicker than a restructuring normally is. I pick up the nice pen, and then something I cannot fully explain makes me put it back down. "Can I read it tonight and sign tomorrow?" I ask. Garrett looks at me for a moment. "Of course," he says. "It's just routine." He says it once more before he leaves the kitchen. Just routine. I notice he says it twice. I sit at the kitchen table after Marcus is in bed and I read all 11 pages. I am not a lawyer, and I do not understand everything in front of me, but I understand enough. What the document restructures is not just an LLC. What it restructures is the ownership stake in 3 commercial properties. Properties Garrett has always referred to as ours. Properties that appear in the financial statements he shows me each year at tax time. Properties that I understood to be jointly held. The restructured document, if signed, would transfer my ownership interest in all 3 properties into a new holding company in Garrett's name alone. My name would appear nowhere. I would have no legal claim to any of it. The total value of those 3 properties, based on the most recent assessment Garrett showed me 6 months ago, is approximately $1,200,000. My share, the share I am being asked to sign away on a Thursday evening while my husband pours wine and asks about my day, is roughly $400,000. I put the document in my bag. I go to bed. I do not say anything to Garrett. He asks me the next morning if I had a chance to look it over, and I say I need a few more days. He nods. He pours his coffee. He is not worried. He has no reason to think I understood what I read. The following Saturday, I am at the coffee shop near the school, the one I go to on weekends to catch up on administrative work when I need quiet. I am sitting at the corner table with the document open in front of me and a highlighter in my hand when a woman sits down at the table beside mine. We are the only two people in that section. She glances at the papers and says, without looking up from her own coffee, "Highlighted sections always mean someone wants you to skip everything in between." I laugh before I can stop myself. She looks up then. She is calm, well-dressed. The kind of woman who takes up exactly the space she is entitled to, and not an inch less. We talk for maybe 20 minutes. I do not tell her everything, but I tell her enough that I have been asked to sign something I do not fully understand, that my husband says it is routine, that I almost signed it without reading it. She listens. Then she says, "Never sign a document you do not fully understand. And if someone keeps calling it routine, ask yourself who the routine is designed to benefit." She gathers her things, leaves a tip on the table, and walks out. I do not catch her name. I call my sister Donna that afternoon. I tell her what I found. There is a long silence on the other end of the line. The kind of silence that contains 11 years of unsaid things. Then she says, "Mim, get a lawyer before you do anything else." I have an appointment with a family law solicitor by Monday morning. The solicitor's name is James Whitfield. He is thorough and unhurried, and he reads every page of the document before he says a single word about it. When he does speak, he confirms what I already suspected. The restructuring, as written, would have eliminated my equitable interest in the 3 properties entirely. He also tells me something I was not expecting. This kind of document structure, the way the ownership transfer is framed, the specific legal language used, is not something a general commercial broker puts together. This required a specialist, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. He recommends I get a full forensic accounting review of all marital assets before I make any decisions. He gives me a name. The accountant's name is Paul Ajay. He is a forensic accountant, and he is very quiet and very precise, the kind of man who speaks in complete sentences and never uses a word he does not need. He asks me for every financial document I can access: tax returns, bank statements, property assessments, the annual financial summaries Garrett has prepared for me each year. I spend 2 weeks pulling everything I can find and scanning it from the copy machine in my office after hours. Paul Ajay takes 3 weeks to review what I give him. When we meet to go over his findings, he sits across from me with a folder and a legal pad, and he says, "I want you to understand that what I am about to show you is not unusual in cases like this, but it is significant. What Paul Ajay has found is this. Over 7 years, Garrett has systematically underreported the income from all 3 commercial properties on the joint financial summaries he prepared for me. The summaries I used to prepare our shared tax filings. The actual rental income from the properties is substantially higher than what I was shown. The difference, calculated across 7 years, is approximately $80,000 that passed through the properties and was redirected into accounts I did not know existed. $80,000. While I was managing a school of 600 students and trusting my husband to manage the financial side of our life, $80,000 was quietly moved somewhere I could not see it. Paula J. slides a single page across the table. It is a summary. Every number is on it. I look at it for a long time. Then I ask him to make me 3 copies. I want to tell you about the night I confronted Garrett, because I did confront him. Not immediately, not before I had everything in place, but eventually. The confrontation was my choice, and I made it with full information and on my terms. It is a Sunday evening. Marcus is at Donna's house for the night. I have set the documents on the kitchen table. Paul Ajay's summary, the original restructuring document, and a letter from James Whitfield confirming that divorce proceedings have been initiated. Garrett comes home from a client dinner at 9:15. He sees the papers on the table before he sees my face. He stops in the doorway. "What is this?" he says. "Sit down, Garrett," I say. He does not sit. "What is this, Miriam?" "It is a forensic accounting summary," I say. "Paul Ajay prepared it. It covers 7 years." Garrett's face does something complicated. "Who is Paul Ajay?" "He is the accountant James Whitfield recommended." Another silence. You went to a lawyer? I did. When? 3 weeks after you handed me that pen. He sits down then, not because I asked him to, because his legs appear to have made the decision for him. This is not what it looks like, he says. And I say, and I want you to understand, I had been waiting a very long time to say this. Garrett, I am a vice principal. It is exactly what it looks like. What follows is not a screaming match. I will not give you that, because it did not happen. What Garrett does is what Garrett has always done when cornered. He reorganizes. He begins to explain. The accounts were for investment purposes. He was protecting the assets. He was planning to disclose everything when the time was right. I let him talk. I have nothing to add. James Whitfield has already filed. Paul Adjay's report is already in evidence. The document Garrett wanted me to sign is already Exhibit A. There is nothing left for me to say in that kitchen that the court is not going to hear in detail. Garrett's legal team arrives at this, proceeding with 2 arguments. The first is that the financial summaries were simplified versions, prepared for ease of understanding, not legal documents, and therefore not fraudulent. The second is that the planned ownership restructuring was a protective measure for the family's assets, and that Miriam was always intended to benefit. James Whitfield takes the first argument apart in approximately 40 minutes, using Paul Adjay's line-by-line comparison of the summaries against the actual bank records. He takes the second argument apart in less time than that, using the document itself, specifically the clause on page 9 that explicitly terminated my ownership interest without any compensatory provision, replacement, or acknowledgement. There is no version of page 9 that protects me. Garrett's own solicitor goes very quiet after page 9 is read into the record. There is a moment in that courtroom that I keep returning to. Garrett's solicitor is cross-examining me about the financial documents. He is trying to establish that I had access to the full records at all times and chose not to review them, that this is, in some way, my oversight rather than Garrett's concealment. He asks me how often I reviewed the annual financial summaries Garrett prepared. I tell him every year. He asks if I ever question the figures. I tell him no. He asks why not. I look at him and I say, because I trusted my husband to tell me the truth. That is not negligence. That is marriage. The courtroom is very quiet after that. The opposing solicitor, sitting 2 seats from Garrett's legal team, a composed woman I do not know, writes something on her notepad. I notice because she underlines it twice. The court finds in my favor on the financial concealment claim. The ownership restructuring document is voided. Full disclosure of all accounts is ordered. The $80,000 redirected over 7 years is classified as marital assets subject to division. The 3 properties are valued at current market, $1.4 million, higher than the assessment Garrett showed me, and divided accordingly. I am awarded primary residence with Marcus, with Garrett maintaining his agreed contact schedule. The settlement is finalized 5 months after I filed. I want to tell you what I did the day the settlement was finalized. I drove to the school. It was a Saturday, so the building was empty, but I have a key. I walked to my office and I sat at my desk and I looked at the school through the window, the playground, the basketball court, the science wing we finally got the funding to renovate last year. I have spent 12 years in this building. I know every difficult parent, every struggling student, every teacher who stays late because they care, and everyone who leaves at 3:15 because they have stopped caring. I know this place in the way. You know somewhere that is genuinely yours. And I sat there, and I understood something. Garrett spent 9 years of our marriage handing me a pen and trusting that I would not read what was in front of me. One Thursday evening, I put the pen down. Everything that followed came from that one decision, not from anger, not from desperation, from reading 11 pages on a kitchen table while my son was asleep upstairs, from one woman in a coffee shop who said, "Never sign something you do not understand," from my sister's voice on the phone after 11 years of silence on the subject, from Paul Adjay's single sheet of paper with every number on it. You do not need to be a lawyer to protect yourself. You need to read what is put in front of you. That is it. That is the whole lesson. Miriam Okafor is a vice principal. She manages a school. She manages a budget. She manages 43 members of staff. And on a Thursday evening in March, she managed to put down a pen. That pen, the nice silver one, the heavy one, is still somewhere in that kitchen. I hope Garrett kept it. He paid a great deal for it. It did not get him very far. 6 months after the settlement, Donna comes to stay for a weekend. We take Marcus to the park on the Sunday, the big one near the river, the one with the long walking path he likes, because he can run ahead and still be in sight. Donna and I walk slowly behind him. At some point, she reaches over and takes my hand the way she did when we were small, without making anything of it. We walk like that for a while. Marcus reaches the bend in the path and turns around and shouts something back at us. I cannot hear what. He is too far ahead, but he is grinning. Donna squeezes my hand once. I squeeze back. Some things do not need to be said. This is one of them. The truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives on a Thursday evening in 11 pages of restructuring documents. Sometimes it arrives in a coffee shop from a woman whose name you never catch. The important thing is that when it arrives, you are paying attention.